Okay.
Hi guys, welcome back to our stage here in Manchester MCM, and look who we have. Please welcome to our sofa, Mr. David Hayter.
Hello. Kept you waiting, huh?
I don't think anyone's going to argue with you when you use that voice.
You'd be surprised.
It's fantastic to have you here. I know you were just saying that this is your first UK Comic Con.
Yes.
Bit different?
Yeah, I think everybody's probably nicer and better looking.
Of course.
I'm pretty sure everybody was a lot drunker last night. Those are the only differences so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Drunk, but still good looking.
But still good looking.
Yeah.
It's
Amazing.
a pretty amazing. Being of Welsh-Irish descent, I think it's in the genes.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You like the beers, or is it wine?
I'm a beer and whiskey enjoyer,
Connoisseur.
enthusiast. Yeah. Don't know if I'm a connoisseur.
And I hope you are enjoying it here in England. I hear this is the first part of your kind of European tour. Is that right? You're going on holiday a bit after this?
Yes, this is all part of a big scam on my part. I wanted to. I came here. Everybody's like, "Well, why'd you come to Manchester?" Well, because it was happening when my daughter was out of school, and so I got my Twitter followers to just contact Manchester and deluge them with requests for me. And so they invited me, and then after this we're going to Cardiff to go to the Doctor Who set, and then we're flying to Paris, and we'll do a week in France and a week in Spain, San Sebastian and Barcelona.
Fantastic.
And it's going to be pretty great.
So it worked out, the whole...
It totally worked. I got a whole European vacation out of it. So.
And I know that you've traveled around in the past quite a bit. I think you spent a bit of time in Japan at one point. Is that true?
Yes, I went to high school in Kobe and lived in Osaka for a few years. I lived in Hong Kong for a time, and
Wow.
yeah, quite a bit of time in Asia.
Did that kind of spike your interest in anime, manga, and video games?
Oh, absolutely,
at all?
yeah. Yeah, it introduced me to the manga anime world, and yeah, anything Japanese, I'm pretty into.
You got the kimono and everything.
I do. I have kimonos. I have swords for home defense. Yeah, anything Japanese, I'm on top of it.
Fantastic. And I was wondering then, in terms of the acting then part of it, certainly with the voice roles, what was your first one? Because it wasn't anime, I don't believe.
My first voice role? Well, actually, people don't know this, and I'd kind of forgotten about it, but when I was in Kobe and I was 16, some Japanese video game makers came to our school because we were all English-speaking people, and they wanted voices for North American arcade games. So I can't remember what games we did, but we recorded a bunch of soldiers and fighters and things like that, and So I've really been doing voices in video games almost since they've been invented.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there's like a teenage Solid Snake out there somewhere if you're playing an arcade game.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And what was your first acting role, sort of live action?
For live like a first filmed acting role.
Yeah.
I don't know. The first one I did in first one I did in California, I think, was a non-union commercial for motorcycle insurance. Was a character who had broken my hip, and I didn't have insurance, and I was bitching about it, which could sort of seem like my own fault. But I didn't want to argue with the character, so I took the job. My first real thing was I guest starred on Major Dad as a Russian son of Yakov Smirnov, who was a visiting Russian major.
And were you using a Russian accent in that?
Yes, I was Russian. I played young Russian boy, and I got to make out with Major's daughter, and it was good. Yeah, a fine job.
Steamy.
Yeah, it was good.
Well, obviously, most of your fans here will know you as Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid. I think you guys know him, don't you?
They know.
And, they know.
I've met a few of them now. Hello.
And obviously, you've done various voices in the game. So, do you have a favorite that stands out of the snakes?
Out of the snakes, the various snakes? Well, he's cloned from Big Boss, and so they sound similar, but I try to find a place in their lives which is and put a little spin on each one that's a little different. So I think the most fun was doing maybe Snake Eater, where I was young Big Boss, and it wasn't quite so beat down, and he wasn't so bitter, and he was kind of young and on top of it all, and so that was pretty cool.
And how do you decide on the voices and the sort of slight differences?
It's all just feel, or the circumstances of the character. So in Metal Gear 4, he was suffering from accelerated aging, so it was old Snake, and his larynx was sort of falling apart, and so the part kind of dictates what how I'm going to play it.
And are there any particular words that are difficult to say in the voice?
Oh, what's really difficult to do, I don't think I've ever told anybody this, it's very difficult to do questions, like to come up at the end, because you sound stupid, And the problem with Snake is all he ever does is ask questions. He's like, Shagod, or virtuous mission. It was always felt like a dope doing that, and yet I had to ask the question. So I tried to do it just without coming up at the end, and they'd say, can you make it more of a question? I'm like, question? But as soon as it comes up at the end, it's not Snake voice anymore, so that was always a little dicey.
Oh, that's fantastic. And certainly, I know that the fans are loving hearing you say the voice. Is there certain lines that you like to say?
Oh, I love the speech in Metal Gear 4 where he says, I'm no hero, never was, never will be. I'm just an old killer hired to do some wet work. That sort of.
That is fantastic.
It's
Round
fun
of
to
applause
me.
for that.
Oh,
That's
bless.
brilliant.
Thank you.
And obviously, apart from the voice acting...
That's not me.
No.
Kiefer Snake. What the hell?
Well, but he has got the eye patch.
He does, yeah.
Do you have the eye patch? Because you did the sort of live action kind of cameo, didn't you?
Yeah. They did an interview with me, this weird, freaky interview at the beginning of Metal Gear 4, where I had the solid eye patch, and I actually called the makeup guy when Halloween came around. I said, "Can I borrow the eye patch?" And he gave it to me, and he never got it back. So so I still have it.
Where is it?
I can't say. It's been purloined. I don't know where it is now. It's probably melted into nothingness.
Do you like to be like to do cameos in your own films? Because I know you did one in X-Men, didn't you?
I did. No, not really. I did that in X-Men because I didn't expect I would ever get writing credit on it, and I had done so much work on the film. I wanted people to remember that I had been there. So I did that. Oh yeah, they're there. That's all my friends. And And then I ended up getting credit on it, and then I felt stupid for being in the movie. But yeah, no, if I do a cameo in something of my own, I like to be disguised or do a different language or something so that people don't know it's me.
So not be acting out, I guess.
Well, no, acting,
Yeah,
but
exposing.
not be showcasing myself, basically.
Well, it is fantastic that you have another string to your showbiz bow in terms of screenwriting. I don't know if all the fans know, but you are obviously one of the screenwriters for X-Men, X-Men 2, Watchmen. It's just fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
And I have to say, I have to wonder, certainly with X-Men and X-Men 2, how did you get those sort of those jobs really? How did you get into that?
Well, it's a crazy story, and I've told it many times elsewhere. But essentially, I was hired to answer the phones on the movie X-Men, and the director was an old friend of mine, Bryan Singer, and he kept complaining. He had me drive him to a creature effects house, and he kept complaining about the script. He's like, "Oh, the script is terrible, and it's going to ruin my career," and blah blah blah. And I had been a fan of the comic books. Since I was a kid, and so I suggested a scene, and I said, well, have Wolverine say this to Cyclops, and it's set up all this stuff. And he goes, yeah, go write that for me. And but I figured he was kidding because it was an $80 million movie, but he wasn't kidding. And then he started having me rewrite the script, and I did that for 13 months, and I ended up getting sole credit on the film, and suddenly that was my first writing job.
Yeah.
So. And I just went from nothing to being a big screenwriter. So it was startling.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And certainly with X-Men 2 then, were you kind of signed up straight away when you started writing X-Men? Or was that after a while they decided to go for X2 and asked you to come back?
Yeah, X2 came back around, and Bryan asked me to come back, and so I did. I mean, it's a lot more complicated and ugly than that, but for public consumption, that should do.
And I know that you sort of co-wrote with Zach Penn, and you sort of merged, I believe, the best bits of your scripts. How do you decide which bits you're going to incorporate together?
Well, that was a weird thing. We didn't really work together. They just told me the day I was going to close my deal that they had another writer they were going to hire. So I said, okay, we'll go with him. And then, so we wrote separately, and I just said, look, Bryan, you decide what you want to take and what you don't want to take, and so he did. It's always up to the director, really.
And are there any favorite scenes that you wrote? What stands out for you?
Yeah, well, I think my favorite was was the opening Nightcrawler attacking the White House. That's one of the few scenes I've ever written, especially for Bryan Singer. We just wrote it. It got prevised and just was done pretty much the way I'd written it, and that was pretty cool.
That was a fantastic scene.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is Bryan Singer's direction. I mean, it was amazing. So. And
certainly with Watchmen as well, because it definitely has a darker tone than most of the comic book films out there at the moment. Just sad.
Is
that the way that you wrote it, or again, is that the director's sort of take on it?
Well, in that case, that's from the book. I mean, the book is dark and it's twisted and it's very, it's got a lot of intellectual depth, and it's an amazing piece of writing. And it was written as a hardcore, it was violent and twisted, and it was very important, I think, to everybody who worked on the movie that we keep it as true to the book as possible. So that was just the nature of the material.
So do you feel a little bit now, I don't know if it's possible, but do you feel sort of typecast as a comic book adapter and screenwriter?
Yeah, to a certain extent, but fortunately I love that. I mean, that's where I live. I was always, just like all of you, I loved comic books, and I loved, nerd culture, and, so I that's where I want to be. I mean, I wouldn't be writing rom-coms or anything like that, or if I did, they wouldn't be very good, or everyone would be killed, or they would turn into some sort of mutant creature. So, I'm pretty happy where I am.
Mutants need love as well, right?
Oh, totally.
Absolutely.
Totally.
And I know that you also wrote and then directed, well, your debut as director was Wolves with Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
And that's about werewolves. So is that, again, a genre that you're into?
Yeah, pretty much anything, sci-fi, fantasy, horror, that's where my interests lie, and and it's what people expect from me out of Hollywood and the money people and all that stuff. So, again, it's what I love to do. I mean, I love to just find the real, the reality in those metaphors, and I think we all feel like wolves at times, and it's easy to I mean, the movie was really about my sort of dealing with my own anger when I was a kid and when I was in high school, and sort of dealing with my inner wolf. So that's where it comes from.
And you worked with Jason Momoa in that movie.
I did.
What was he like? I heard he used to pick you up a lot.
Well, not a lot. He did it once. We were at Comic-Con in San Diego. And forgive me, I told the story yesterday if you were listening to me. I'm repeating myself. But I introduced him. We were doing a Wolves panel. I introduced him. And I am in my 40s. I'm 6'1" and 185 pounds. And I introduced Jason Momoa, and he came out and he grabbed me by the hips and he lifted me into the air and he went wonk, 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 like that. Like I was a child, like I was 8 years old. It was amazing. So that was a little startling because I didn't really know that was possible. But Jay is he's 6'5" and 250 pounds of just muscle, and so
He's got about as close as a superhero you possibly.
He really. I mean, he's so amazing to see on screen, but when you see him in person, it's startling. And I also didn't realize the effect he had on women who tend to fall over dead upon seeing. I didn't. I'm a guy. I didn't really. I was like, sure, he's good looking, but I mean, he's a very well constructed creature.
Creature/man.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, so I know you guys have questions for David. If you want to stick your hands up for me, and I'll come round to you.
Nice to meet you, David.
Nice to meet you.
I'll preface this question by saying I am very aware of who you are. I absolutely bloody love your work.
Thank you.
But that being said, this question isn't really about any of that per se.
Okay, perfect.
You tweeted something a few months back, basically listing out your jobs. And I can't remember what 1 and 2 were, but I think you said 3 was either working in a restaurant or being a barman.
Yeah.
And
that's
then
right. I remember
and your
that.
4th was Solid Snake.
Yeah. First one
was
was selling tuxedos. I was 15 years old. This was the course of my. It was some hashtag about list the course of your career, and I think it was selling tuxedos, waiting tables, bartending, Solid Snake, screenwriter, director, or something like that.
Yeah. And I was just wondering, as an aspiring voice actor, how the hell do you go from being a barman to one of the best, if not the best, video game character ever conceived?
Well, you have to be lucky, and you have to. I mean, I knew what I wanted when I was. I mean, I wanted to be an actor since the time I was 9 years old. So when I was 20, I moved to Los Angeles by myself. I had no money. Got a job as a bar back. So the bartenders taught me how to be a bartender, and so I was able to make some money that way. But I was really in Los Angeles to become an actor, and I had done voice work before, and I trained in theater school, so I had a pretty well trained voice. So I just started auditioning. I started seeking out agents, and it kind of built up over time. I got little jobs here and there. I got to know people in the industry. I got to know Chris Zimmerman, who was the casting director on Captain Planet, and ended up being the voice director for all the English language versions of Metal Gear. So Chris brought me in. After 8 years of struggle, I mean, I didn't have a cent to my name the day I went to audition for Snake, and then I auditioned for it and I got it, and then I had a couple of cents to my name, and then I became a screenwriter, and then I was very, very wealthy.
And just as a quick two-parter, do you feel it's harder for voice actors to get work nowadays, especially with the voice actor strike? I mean, I know Capcom recently announced that they're using non-union actors for the English version of the Resident Evil 2 remake, and basically
Yeah,
that
good luck
means-
with that.
Well, yeah, that means that obviously the actors that played Leon Kennedy, Claire Redfield, Ada Wong aren't going to be reprising their roles. So, I mean, is that something that you think affects newbies really heavily, or does it make them sort of more expendable?
Well, a strike is never good for anybody, really, but sometimes it's necessary. I think it's okay for newbies because, I mean, what it means is you'll have new actors, you'll have non-union actors come in, and I started as a non-union actor. There's no shame in it. That's where we all start. I personally believe that you should keep the actors that have done well by you, and I think the audience expects to hear the same people again. Sort of throws them off, when they change the voices. But I don't think it's any harder than it is at any other time. Being a voice actor, particularly in an amazing video game, is arguably the greatest job in the world, and a lot of people want to do it. So you've got a lot of competition all the time. The odds are always against you, and you just have to buckle down and not be afraid to suffer for a while. I stick with what Harrison Ford used to say, which was, it's a war of attrition. You arrive in Hollywood when you're 20 with 100 people on the bus that want the same thing as you. By the time you're 25, there's less. By the time you're 30, there's almost none. And whoever's left by 35, hopefully they're working and you find your way. So I think voice acting is the same. It's always, in any big city, there's always a small group of people that do a lot of the voice work, and it's a matter of being able to break into that group. So.
Okay, next question over here.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, will you ever do any more work with Kojima in his new projects?
I don't think so.
Oh.
I'd rather not.
And can I ask a quick favor? Can
Well,
you give a
yeah.
shout out to Brett? He's a big fan of yours. He didn't want to come Comic-Con.
Which one's Brett?
Sure.
What's that? Brett, how's it going? Welcome. Kept you waiting, huh?
Hi, David. Over here.
Hello, how are you?
I hate the sound of my voice. Sorry.
No, it's excellent.
I hear it. Remember you doing the voice of Loop on the Third at one point?
Yeah.
What was your take on him when you first did the voice in Casa Cagliostro?
Yeah, so when I was younger, I worked for a studio that was translating anime into English, and I had done a bunch of acting, and it was me. Bryan Cranston was there, and this was before we were anybody. And Steve Blum worked at that studio, and they pay us like $50 an hour to come in and translate these things. So I became a fairly reliable actor for them, and then they asked me to do this movie, Castle of Cagliostro, which I did not know really for many years was Hayao Miyazaki's debut feature. And we were recording it, and the lead character, Lupin, is a sort of a charismatic thief and, sort of a cheeky criminal character. And so I basically went off of what he looked like. He was just skinny and charming and sort of irreverent and in your face, and he was young, and so I kind of came at it with this kind of voice, and he kind of reminded me of me, and then we were recording it, and I was like, this is really cool. This movie, the shots are amazing, the sequences are incredible. So and then I found out down the road that it was Hayao Miyazaki, and I was kind of blown away. I'm glad I didn't know it when I was recording it, because it would have been too intimidating to do it properly. But that was the basic gist of it.
Okay, next question over here.
Hello again.
Hello, nice
Hi.
to see you.
My question is about, I know you've got a new video game coming out that you're doing some voice work on called The Long Dark.
Yes.
I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about the game itself and what it was like reuniting with Jennifer Hale for another project.
Oh yeah, well Jennifer is one of my favorite people in the whole world, and in fact she claims that it's because of her that I got Snake. That she's like, I told Chris to call you in, so Yeah, you know. But she also got me Star Wars: The Old Republic. I owe my whole career to Jennifer Hale, really. And that's what I meant when I was saying to you. You get to know people that are working in the industry, and they will recommend you to other people, and off you go. The Long Dark is it's a game done by a developer named Raphael van Lierop, big Canadian game developer with just top-notch Canadian talent. It's me, Mark Meir, Jennifer Hale, a number of other great people, and it's essentially it's an apocalyptic winter survival game, and I guess it's been the non-campaign mode has been out for a while, and now we're recording the story mode. We just did the first chapter, so I went up to Vancouver and I recorded it recently, and my part was so cool, and it's a different kind of voice and a really, really amazing part. So I'm thrilled to do it, and I'm thrilled to be able to do it again. But I did not do it with Jennifer. She had already recorded her stuff long before. So I did not see her in Vancouver, but I see her in Los Angeles all the time. Our families are friends, and we hang out. I hang out at her pool and swim, which is what you do.
Okay, next question over here.
First of all, I'm well aware of the amazing stuff you've done in terms of voice acting. It's brilliant.
Thank you.
But in terms of the writing aspect, if you ever got the opportunity, or if you were ever asked to do anything in terms of movies again, would you be able to do it? Would you say yes to anything like that?
Yeah, well, I work all the time. It's just they don't always get made. Yeah, that's my main job. Is I'm a screenwriter, really. My side job is voice acting and acting. With acting, it's typically if somebody asks me to do it, I'll be like, yeah, okay, whatever. With writing, it has to be something that I really love and that I think I'll be good at. But yeah, I'm working on I'm working on a show right now that John Carpenter is attached to direct. So that's really cool because I fanboy out over him more than almost anybody. So yeah, no, I'm doing a bunch of stuff, and yeah, if somebody's got a movie that I think fits me, I'll certainly be down for it.
Okay, another question over here.
Hello.
Hello.
My brother and I are really, really big fans, but he's too shy to talk to you, so I want to ask you a question about one of his interests, even though I'm sure he has a more interesting question. How do you feel about dogs, and what is your favorite kind of dog?
I feel very positively towards dogs. And is this your brother next to you? Hello, nice to meet you. I have 4 dogs. Now, I didn't choose these dogs, so don't blame me, but we have 2 toy fox terriers. They're like little black and white sort of rat dogs, and they're fine. We have a little Chihuahua long-haired dachshund mix that we found on the street in Reseda, little street dog, who a friend of ours found and brought over to our house and said, and my wife was like, what are we going to do with this dog? And I was like, look at her face. That's the cutest dog I've ever seen. We're keeping her. And so she's the luckiest street dog in the world. And then we just got a racing greyhound named Zephyr, who, just like the dog on The Simpsons, it's a big orange racing dog, and who now sleeps in my bed. And I was like, that's a very pointy dog, And so he's always, poking me, but he's very lovable and extremely fast. So I love dogs. To sum up, dogs, A-OK.
Do they all get on?
They do, yeah. They do. The little Chihuahua sort of rules the roost and snaps in the face of all the rest of them. But we're all a big family. We also have a beautiful Burmese cat and my mother who lives in our house. So they all get along fine.
Okay, so we have a few quick fire questions in the TARDIS for you. So if we open it up, you want to
Allons-y.
put your hands in and pick out a question?
This is like a trap or something, isn't
It could
it?
be. You have to put your entire arm in.
Ah! Oh, sorry. No, that's fine. I think it was a Cyberman. Okay, I can't read this. Do I prefer Buffy the Vampire Slayer or the Vampire Diaries? Well, yeah, this is this was a trap. I have to say Buffy the Vampire Slayer because my wife used to work on it as a visual effects producer, and I've seen it. So those are the two reasons why I would choose that. I'm sure.
Good reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I met Ian Somerhalder once at Comic-Con.
Oh, yeah?
And he's on Vampire Diaries.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've met one of them, and he seemed very nice. He was a very handsome person. But beyond that, I don't know anything about Vampire Diaries.
Yeah.
So
yeah, your
I'm
wife
sorry.
trumps him. That's fair. I think.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I used to go and hang out while she was, destroying vampires and all that stuff.
Oh,
It was
yeah?
pretty cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Another one. Careful.
No, sorry. Okay. Yeah, moving. Pointy. Do I prefer Ghostbusters or Back to the Future? That's tough. Well, I prefer Back to the Future. That is not. That's no diss on Ghostbusters. I think Ghostbusters is amazing and was one of the inspiring movies of my life. But Back to the Future changed my whole life. I mean, that's just an astoundingly perfect film. I mean, if my soul could turn into a film, it would probably be Back to the Future. So.
That is the consensus, I think. Back to
Yeah.
the Future. Okay, another one.
Let's see here. Do I prefer Sonic Screwdriver? Yeah, it says Doctor Who, like I don't know what a Sonic Screwdriver is. Or Harry Potter wand. I have to say Sonic Screwdriver. I love Harry Potter. I've also met Daniel Radcliffe, who's a delightful person. But I was a little old for Harry Potter when it came out. So, and Doctor Who, my daughter is 13, and we started watching them a few years ago and just got obsessed with it. So,
Who's your favorite Doctor?
David Tennant.
Yeah.
I mean,
A lot of agreement there.
It's so funny because when he was coming to the end of his run, I thought, I'm never watching this again. What's the point? And I loved Matt Smith, and I love Peter Capaldi. They always come, they come up with these new doctors, and they're always amazing. But there was nobody like David Tennant. He's just electric. I mean, I don't even know how he does it. He's one of the most magical actors I've ever seen. And I just got to meet him at a con in Washington, D.C. about a month ago and introduced my daughter. So I was Dad of the Year that day. And he was so sweet. And so, yeah, David Tennant is the one.
Are you excited for Jodie Whittaker?
I'm very excited for Jodie Whittaker. I don't really know her very well as an actor, but I know the show well enough to know that I'll be like, oh my God, I love these people, So I'm very excited for it. I think that's really cool, and I think it's about time. I loved Michelle Gomez as Missy. Mm-hmm. I've gotten to meet her too. My job is very, very cool. I get to hang out with all these amazing. In fact, I was at a Comic-Con in Toronto. I was at Fan Expo. And I was walking along backstage, and you're really not supposed to bother each other backstage. And I saw her, and I was like, "Oh, hang on, you're Missy." And she's like, "That's right." And I was like, "Okay, well, I have to do a selfie with you." And she's like, "Let's do it." And it was pretty great. So I think it's great that Doctor Who can be anybody. And we were kind of disappointed because Pearl Mackie, who plays Bill, is a friend of mine, and we just thought she was amazing, and we were kind of wish they'd waited and made her the next Doctor, because she's so, she could do that. It seems like she'd really have the personality for that, but
You never know.
But you never know. So
Okay, 2 more, I think. Yeah.
all right. What is my favorite snack? Well, very often I will dine on a tree frog. No, sometimes you dine on a tree frog. What's my favorite snack? Calorie Mate, Asahi beer. It's not really a snack, but I treat it as such. I think Maui sweet onion chips. That's probably my.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have those here, but
Oh, you're missing out. They're really, really good. I guess they're crisps here, but good nonetheless.
okay. All right. Final question.
All right. What do we got here? Who wrote these?
Me?
Oh, they're very good.
Okay,
Very
yes,
good.
Good answer.
Right, excellent. Do you prefer dragons or dinosaurs? Well, I think dragons, right? I mean, dragons you can ride and talk to and, use against your enemies, but,
I don't think anyone's ridden a dinosaur before.
No, and if they have, it probably went poorly.
Yep.
Yeah, dinosaur. Look, I also love dinosaurs. I don't want to diss the dinosaur community in case anybody's listening. But dragons are, a little more up my alley.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Thank you so much for talking to us. It's been great having you here. And guys, if you want to see more of David, he will be signing over at his booth very shortly. But
That's true.
once again, give it up for David Hayter.
Thank you. And thank you, Manchester, for being such a remarkable city and such an amazing group of people. Everybody's been so uniformly lovely and accommodating. So thank you for welcoming me into your city.